checking for volume and to be sure we have things working, and also waiting for the leader, which I had a hard time with. Okay, this is Merideth Taylor, and I'm talking with Mrs. Everlyn Holland today at her home, and it is May 30th, 1997, and I'm going to check this. Okay. Well, one of the things that we really didn't talk very much about last time was about what was going on here in the county during World War II, and particularly whether there were any activities to support the war, any USO or Red Cross activities, things that people worked on to send to the front, or any kind of activities like that, or just talking about what it was like. You said that you remember the ration books.
Yes, I do. I remember food rationing and rationing for shoes. The thing that was most vivid in my mind was at school we had buying war bonds, and we had to save our money to buy war bonds. Our class did that. Our class also raised a garden, and that type thing. That's what I remember most vividly.
What grades were you in?
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what grade I was in.
What school?
I was at Banneker.
At Banneker, okay.
Right, I was in Banneker School. And that school went from the first grade to the 11th grade.
So that doesn't tell us.
So no, it doesn't say how old I was. But I was in the elementary grade, I remember that. And we had to raise this garden because it was a victory garden to help us raise our own food, be independent.
What happened to the food?
We divided it up. What we raised, we divided up and took it home.
And
at the harvest.
And did all the schools do that, do you think? You probably.
I have no knowledge of what other schools did other than Banneker.
I think that was a widespread movement. What about, did your parents talk about the war at home?
Well, a little bit, and my mother talked about it. I think shortly after that we moved to Washington, and my mother worked as a messenger in some of the offices there in Washington.
Did you have any relatives that were fighting in the war, who were serving overseas? Not that you remember.
None that I could remember, and they well might have, but I none that I remember. I didn't have any. I don't think any. My uncles served during the Second World War. My stepfather served during the Second World War.
Did you have a radio? Did you listen to the radio then?
We listened to the radio. We listened to radio. We had a battery-powered radio. You had to buy a battery for it. Those were scarce, so you had to wait to get one. And you didn't play it too much because it would run out, and you weren't able to replace it. So you didn't have a radio.
Did when you look back now, do you think? I mean, did it have a very large impact? Would you say, or was it something that just seemed a part of everyday sort of activities?
To me, it seemed a part of everyday, and it really, well, it didn't have a large impact on me, I guess, because it wasn't close. It was not close. I mean, and you heard things, I heard things as if they were far away. They were not immediate. They didn't impact other than that there were shortages of of a lot of things that ordinarily we would buy at the store. But we didn't buy those things that often anyway, you know. So we didn't feel the shortages so acutely. I mean, we raised food and got our food from the gardens anyway, so this was not new or different as
So,
far as we were
but they
concerned.
rationed shoes
Right?
and
Shoes, sugar,
uh,
coffee,
coffee.
those things.
What about any comments about during the Korea, the military action in Korea, or were you here in the county then during those years?
During the Korean War, yes, I was here in St. Mary's County. My husband was in the Korean War. He was stationed in 1954 at the Naval Air Station, and he had served on a ship during the Korean War. And I was here in St. Mary's County at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Lived here.
Now, during the years of during the Vietnam War, which was a number of years, you know, there were a lot of protests, and
Right.
a lot of strife and violence that over both civil rights issues and specifically anti-war issues. Were you aware of anything in the county as far as demonstrations or any kind of clashes or controversy over the Vietnam War?
This is a rural area, and you don't have many people per square mile or whatever. So it's sort of difficult to have a protest. I mean, a really large-scale protest. At that time, there was in Leonardtown or in Lexington Park. Of course, Leonardtown is the only incorporated town in St. Mary's County. And Lexington Park was an area that I guess grew up because it was in proximity to the base. So the only areas where there might be a concentration of people, or you could, whatever people did people would have to come from somewhere. It was not readily, you could go within a few block area and produce or get people to participate. So
There seemed to be any tensions around?
I'm sure there were. Most of St. Mary's County is, you know, family-oriented, church-oriented. I'm sure there were discussions. They also had these volunteer fire departments and volunteer rescue squads, those places where people gathered. I'm sure there were discussions, and there was probably controversy, maybe even within families. But where you found quote-unquote traditional families, people went. They went to Army, Navy, wherever you were drafted. I mean, it wasn't as if people protested. Someone who, in St. Mary's County, I don't know anyone, particularly anyone in the black community, who did not serve if they were called to serve. I don't know anyone who went to Canada or went to Europe or went somewhere and did not serve. I don't know that.
Okay.
Didn't know that.
What about, do you think people were aware of, did it have any impact when Martin Luther King came out and spoke out against
Yes.
the war?
Oh, yes.
Did that change?
Among some black leadership, people were, they thought he had overstepped his bounds. Why are you saying you really shouldn't? They felt he went too far by saying that he was against the war. Viewed it as sort of anti-American, or yes, to speak out and publicly publicly go on the record as being opposed to the war in Vietnam.
That's not something that other black leaders were doing. I mean, were doing at the time so much.
No, it was not something they were doing. It seemed to take the struggle in a different direction. And I think a lot of people viewed it as we have enough on our plate dealing with our rights. You know, let someone else, let these people stand up and do whatever they need for themselves. We have enough on our plates to deal with. We don't need to invite or add any more.
So you think it was seen as divisive then?
Right. It was seen as divisive. However, there were people in this county who did come to see that indeed this was insightful, and it it made sense. It was, if having freedom or having being able to control your own destiny, if that was good for us, it's good for other people as well. The other part is, I don't think a lot of people really, even to today, really understood the issues that were involved in what happened in Vietnam. Of course, you have the media, and that's all you can rely on, are the images that come back to you and the thing. But what really happened, what caused the division of North Korea and South Korea, what it was all about, I don't think we know until today. So you're going to have that controversy. A lot of people who were protesting saying, I don't want to go. A lot of them were saying they didn't want to go because they did not want to go. They didn't feel that they should die because of something that was happening some country way across wherever it didn't concern them. That was what they were saying. Other people were saying we need to be concerned with people's rights wherever they are. And that's the reason they didn't choose to serve. But there were other people saying, I just don't know enough about it. So they didn't choose to go. Then you have people on the other side saying, doesn't matter. If the United States is involved, we have a duty to be involved. So you have all these forces, and somewhere in there is the truth, or what you really need to be doing.
Some people have said that that his coming out against the war, Martin Luther King's coming out against the war, may have led to his assassination. Of course, there are all sorts of theories, but what do you have any theories about that, about his assassination?
Ideas about his, what happened, what might have prompted. Well, the fact that he spoke out on any issue, or he talked about things like people being free, like things like people having equal rights. The very fact that he spoke out about those things certainly made him a target for anyone who thought, well, these thoughts are radical and dangerous. I probably need to say here that I personally, myself, I don't believe that you can have a democracy and a market economy or be a capitalist society. Those two things are dichotomies. They don't work together.
Democracy
and a capitalist society. They do not work together. I think if you look at the history of our country, you will find that in every conflict, one or both of those things have been at the root of the conflict. But we continue to talk about democracy, and we continue to talk about, well, we're a capitalist society. And they just, you just cannot give people their freedom. You can have freedom, you can do whatever you like, and then say, you can make as much money as you want, however you want to make it. It doesn't work. Because someone is going to be without freedom, and someone's going to be without capital. So therein is going to be a conflict. Now, how we have limped along these 250, 300 years, I don't know. I imagine it is by the grace of God. But
Oh, okay. Well, we'll come back to that. Let me ask one more thing about Martin Luther King, and just I just want to know a little bit about what you remember, what you were doing and where you were, and when you found out that he had been killed.
oh, I remember vividly. I guess there is someone, it's the question people usually ask. What were you doing when Martin Luther King was assassinated? He was assassinated in 1968. Yeah. I had a new baby. My daughter was born in 1968 in February, and she was about April. Yeah, she was about 3 months old, 3 months old. So, and I remember she was crying because she was cranky, and I was upstairs trying to put her to sleep when my husband was downstairs. He's watching television, and he said, "Come down here. You should see this." I said, "Come and see what? What happened?" So when I came to the top step, picked the baby up, came to the top of the stairs, and he said, "Martin Luther King was assassinated." I said, "Oh, horrible. What happened?" So the baby, we all sitting down to television to listen. And I guess I thought, well, can you sort of expect this? Or is it, yes, expect this. And I guess he did also. I guess it was not that he certainly thought that his life was in danger.
What about Malcolm X? Did you have a similar awareness of Malcolm X and when he was assassinated?
No, I just remember that he was assassinated. I don't remember the date or the time, but I do remember the swirl of publicity and the accusations about who might have assassinated him. But he was also a person who was outspoken and certainly a target for whoever was out there who disagreed or agreed or thought he did or said too much. So, yes.
When you think about the civil rights and let's say, it doesn't have to be limited to the 50s or 60s, even before. Just what names to you really stand out the most when you think about leaders in the civil rights struggle?
We can always talk about those people who were publicized or made, I call them media leaders, people that are advanced or put forth as being quote unquote leaders. But I think that people who are leaders are those people who just said, well, we aren't going to do this particular thing that we have done for however many years we've done it. We are not going to that back door anymore. We are not going to work here in this kitchen for you for 50 cents or $1 a day. We aren't going to do that anymore. Those are the people that I think are the real leaders and the heroes. And in St. Mary's County in particular, the people that helped to pass the public accommodations bill. People who went to the courthouse and said, we have a right to look over the voting list, and we have a right to strike from that all of those people who are dead, all of those people who don't live here anymore, but who somehow vote. So those are the people that I see as leaders in the civil rights movement, those people at the grassroots who did those kinds of things.
And that was specifically talking about it as a state by state in the state public accommodations.
Right.
Okay. Was that a large? How many? It was just a few people who always sort of.
Yes, usually always a few people. There were any number of organizations here. The NAACP was here, but there were certain things that the NAACP could not involve itself in. There were certain things, and therefore you needed a local organization that could do those things, and you had them. You had Citizens for Progress. They could involve themselves, and they did, in local issues. And they were the same people. The same people who belonged to the NAACP belonged to Citizens for Progress. So you often had the same people to do these things. And what I call them were motivators. They got other people thinking. They got them to see they could do something different, better. So,
what about the in terms of getting people voting?
Right, we did voter registration drives. Yes.
Did people here go around and
yes,
pick
people up? We went house to house, took them to register, took them to vote. Changed the habit of someone coming and giving you 50 cents or a miniature to vote a certain way.
No, say that again.
Change the habit, of getting people used to come around and give people 50 cents or give a miniature of whiskey for your vote.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
And so these would be a typical, like the people
Typical
who are campaigning. This would be part of their campaign. They go around.
Right, in the back of a truck.
In the back of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And did people come out to vote then when they got that 50 cent
Mm-hmm.
or that miniature?
Mm-hmm.
So actually, African Americans in the county
You were bribed and paid to.
They did vote.
Yes, they
So
would
it
come
was
out.
really
You
more
could.
a matter of
Yes, you could get them to come out. Those who were registered, you could get them to come out and do that. But there was no incentive for anybody else to register. I mean, there wasn't any incentive other than that you were going to get that 50 cent or that miniature.
So how did you go about changing people's?
Well, you went about.
Educating people?
Well, what you did was you said, you're worth more than 50 cent and a miniature. It's all well and good. And then we don't see you for 4 years, and never mind that you live at the end of a long dirt road, and it'll stay dirt. Never mind that your school is in terrible shape, and no one's going to fix it. That needed to change. Yes.
There were a lot of people to reach, to go around and talk.
Well, that's right. But what we used and what we said to people is the same system these people use to give you the 50 cent in the miniature will work for us, which is in every area of the county there was what I called ward boss, and in every area in the county there was a black man who was quote unquote the leader in the in this area. So what white politicians did when they wanted black people to vote, they went to see Mr.
Oh, you're saying that
in
was
this
part
area.
of the system as it was?
Oh, yes.
So that there was a black man who was in each. Oh,
Right,
okay.
in each area. So what happened was we could use the same system.
What was their motivation? Those men.
The white politicians,
No, the black men that had been.
some of them could get a truck,
Some kind of material.
some kind of material thing, or maybe he had a son who was getting into trouble, and I'll see that your son gets out of jail, or that type thing, or they got something material for it, or maybe you need a new tractor.
And so then how did you go about, say, using the same system? How did you do it?
Well, are you worth a 50 cent and a miniature? Well, what we want to show you is that you can get more than that. Instead of getting those two things and that's it, we can show you where you can get a better education for your children. And once these people get in office, how we can hold them to it.
And did you also try to go through the same these sort of ward leaders that the black men that you were talking about? Did
Right.
you also work with them, and did they work with you? Or?
Sometimes they work with us, and sometimes they didn't. When they didn't, we enlisted other people.
Were they all men?
No, they weren't all. In the beginning, they were all men. I think in the 60s about, you had a lot of women who came forward. You had Miss Louise Barnes, my mother, Miss Louise Kelly, and Miss Louise Fenwick down in Park Hall. Those ladies came forward, and we had in the northern end of the county, Miss Carrie Glasgow. Those ladies came forward and worked greatly, did very good work. Miss Bertina Stevens, she's another lady. So you had a lot of women to come forward and pursue some of the things that needed pursuit, changing of people's ideas, and putting forth an effort to make St. Mary's County at least a better place in the educational areas and other areas. So that's how that was done.
Is that a part of one of the things that you had said before was to answer what is maybe the greatest change that you've seen in the county in your time? You said integration. And do you want to say any more about that? Are you including this whole process of how that came about as part of that change?
Right.
Well, I'm really happy to know more about how that actually
How it transpired.
yeah, how that worked. Is there anything else about that time or that change, or how people went about making those changes happen? Do you think, again, I mean, you said it was more of a small number of people. Was there a stronger sense of community?
Yes.
In that, where there was really was it because there was a specific goal?
Yes. Yeah, goal-oriented. People saw, well, this is what we want to do. When people had a goal, had an idea, it wasn't so nebulous when you said make things better. Make things better, we want to elect this person. So it had to be sort of a goal rather than just make things better. How?
And is that is that kind of thing you think possible today? That kind of action? Or?
That kind of action is possible today. it requires, work. You have to have a goal. You have to have people who are interested. You have to have people who are willing to work, and you have to have money. So it's possible. Yeah, it's possible to do that.
Was there money then?
Oh yes, there was money then. People pledged their own money. People gave functions, dances, picnics, rallies to raise money.
Earlier on Martin Luther King the other day, you said that after Martin Luther King was assassinated, people were concerned, and I think you were referring to maybe people being more concerned about some sort of violent
Yes.
reaction.
Yes. People were concerned about some violent reaction, because I was reading the other day. I guess the sheriff at that time deputized from some people because he thought there would be a riot. But having a riot here is the same problem that I mentioned earlier. You just don't have the volume of people in the area. It just isn't. People would have to come from somewhere, congregate from somewhere, and go somewhere in cars or something. You just couldn't walk up and have a riot. I mean, a riot in itself means that you've got a great number of people, and that doesn't exist here, and didn't exist at that particular time here in St. Mary's County. So,
Do you remember though? Actually, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. When there were a lot of riots going on in other parts of the country, during, like for instance, when they started integrating the schools, and there were some really big violent reactions and riots where people were killed, and then after Martin Luther King's assassination, and of course there were riots back in the 40s too, especially during the war. But do you remember? I mean, do you remember hearing about that? Do you remember hearing any reaction? Do you remember discussing it with your friends, or
Sure.
were people aware of those things?
Sure, people were aware of it. We got the Baltimore paper, the Afro-American here, and those things were always noted in the paper. That's how you got information about things that were happening, particularly to black people. I mean, there was never anything like that in the press here in St. Mary's County. It was most of the time as if there were no black people living here. So, as far as the press was concerned, it wasn't.
Did they they didn't report births, marriages, deaths, or they did, but that was it, or?
They might have. I think they might have reported people who got marriage license. Maybe they did that.
Any kind of feature stories?
I don't remember any feature stories on black people, and there well might have been, but I don't remember any.
Are there more? You see more black faces now in the news locally, just because there are so many people working in various committees and companies, SMECO, and I mean there are a lot of people there's more visibility. Do you think there's more visibility now or not? Maybe I'm wrong.
My perception at this time, as far as what press are you speaking of? The Enterprise, and you do see. Well, I don't see any more exposure any more black people
Mm.
than, say, in the 70s or 80s. I don't see any more. There isn't. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's about the same. And you see black people in sports things, which is pretty typical.
Do you think there is a lack? Do you think there's a lack of balance or lack of coverage in, locally?
Well, it probably is, but what people who write for the paper or people who have anything to do with the paper, they'll just say there just isn't any interest. And then the question is, interest for whom? I mean,
Are they
who's
saying
your
they have a
who's your
white
who's your
leadership
who
base?
is yeah right, who is your audience? And well, you know, who is your audience? Who will you sell your product to? And the answer will be, well, we will sell it to the white people, and that's what we feature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the answer to that.
Ancient answer.
Right.
Well, one thing that you stressed is that those changes that were the struggles during the civil rights to get the laws changed. The changes on the books is one thing, and changes in people's attitudes, people's minds is another. Do you feel that those changes were, I may have asked you this before, that there were real gains during that era, and to what extent have those gains, I guess, been worth it? What do you see as being real gains, and what do you see as being where the changes still need to happen the most? It's not very well said.
I understand what you
Something in
mean.
that area.
Right, I understand what you mean. The gains that were made were, I guess, legal gains, or gains that were yes, legal gains. They were things that were put on the book and said, you must. But I don't think they reached any social or philosophical or any other level. Personally, I don't. That's my feeling. You'll find people who will and a lot of times I guess I have a cynical view of essentially what people feel, and I like to see what they will do. But I don't think that we have advanced, if you want to call it advancement. I don't think we've done that, made any advancement.
Do you consider it an advancement that there isn't integration in public travel and public libraries and restaurants? Do you see that as a gain?
Yes, that is.
Changes in the law. Do you
Right.
see that?
I see the changes in the law as a gain. It makes those things that make life easier accessible.
Okay.
And they should, yes. That's a plus. I see that as a plus.
Do you think a colorblind society is a possibility? Like even anywhere ever in the future, do you see it as a possibility?
Well, a colorblind society in the near future is only possible if all the people are the same color. You need to, people, when you say specifically colorblind, people will make divisions even among families, among themselves. For some reason, I don't know why. Why did God make us this way? I have not the foggiest. But in a family, there has to be someone who does not quite measure up, someone who is the black sheep, quote unquote, someone that we have to point to as different. It's like the kid on the playground. Everybody's running around playing. We have to make a difference. We somehow have to make a difference. And not just a difference, but we have to make a detrimental difference. I somehow have to be better than you are. I don't know for what reason. Why people cannot appreciate each other for whatever it is they are is beyond me. I have no idea why. So, the answer to your question is to have a colorblind society, we all have to be the same color.
Does it have anything to do with what you were talking about with capitalism and democracy and they're not going together?
That too. It has.
Is it because there's a sense that there's not enough for everybody to have everything they ever wanted?
No. That doesn't have anything to do with what people having everything that they ever wanted. People, you'd be surprised at the number of people who have everything they want. They have 100 suits and 50 pairs of shoes. Those same people would do everything they could to stop someone else over here from having 2 pairs of shoes and a shirt on their back. For what reason?
Maybe their belief is that there's not enough. So that either if they, only certain people can have enough. So
that's right. Even if they have all of these things, well, this person has to be, well, they're not deserving, they're not the right color, something they did, and they are not deserving. Even though I have whatever I want, more than enough, more than what you will ever use. And that's just the way, I don't know, way some people are. And you'll find other people who have two pair of shoes and 1 suit, and somebody over here who has absolutely nothing, and they are saying, I don't want you to have anything. So it's something in people, a switch, a turn, whatever, but some way in people that we are of this nature.
So really, in a sense, we have to rely on laws.
You have to rely on laws. You have to rely on laws. If you don't, we aren't all going to drive on the same side of the road. We aren't going to all go 60 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour as we should. We wouldn't need policemen to say, right, stop, you are doing something wrong.
Well, talking about schools, and particularly because I know you have a lot of experience and ideas about that. In what ways, integration was a good thing, and in what ways it hasn't played out. One of the things that's happened is that even though we legally don't have segregated schools, the schools have remained actually. There are two things. Many of the schools have remained, in fact, in actuality, segregated.
Right.
Partly, especially economically. And the other thing is that even schools that have been truly integrated have been problems that some of you talked about before were that white teachers were not as well. Why don't you just talk about some of the things that you felt about when black kids went to integrated schools and suddenly, rather than having black teachers, had white teachers, some of the problems that you saw occurring?
I think we can talk about capitalism and democracy going together. Money when you have money, you can do a lot of things. And as far as integration is concerned, it was not just a matter of equity in having a decent building, decent books, access to decent schools. That was what was primary in the minds of most black people when integration was talked about. Now, I think in the white community there were more than that. They thought these black people are going to come here, they're going to take over this school, and they're going to, it'll be dirty, they'll pull down our scores because really they aren't as intelligent as we are, and all of these negative things. And what happened in actuality when the black students came there, they did try to take advantage of the better schools, cleaner, safer, better equipment, better books, and just that physical plant was better. But they did not count on the attitudes. And when you get a 5-year-old kid in a school, hostile environment, teachers who are hostile, it's a very bad thing. So I think that was a harmful part of integration. I think that certainly has worked in a detrimental way. There are people who can overcome any challenge, and some of them have. Even that challenge of having teachers who were less than helpful. Just as some children overcame environments that were less than helpful. We're always marveling at this person came out of this terrible situation and they rose to be whatever, So that can happen in any situation. But I think for the majority of black children, I think the worst thing that could have happened is that they could not be helped socially, psychologically, even though they were sitting in these nice new desks and had these nice new books. A lot of them, especially males, were destroyed.
You refer to them sometimes as spirit killers.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. They kill the spirit of the students before. And if you ever go, well, any place, if you look at kids 2, 3, 4, 5, they are so eager. I need to learn this. And then by the time they're in the 5th grade, here's this confused, kind of cynical person sitting there saying, I hate school. What happened?
Do you think that, are there changes in the homes too?
That's right. This is not a single shot anything. Things happen. My parents, whether they were just living together or my home situation, my life situation changed. Someone left, my mother left, or my father left, or they died. Something happened there. The situation at school, I don't have a safe haven. And their whole life is turned upside down. And maybe they can survive, maybe not. So by the time you get this person in the 5th grade, it's bad. And then you have them going into high school. You have an adolescent. You have puberty to deal with. Who am I? What am I? How can I? And there's no one to support you. You don't have a safe haven at home. You don't have a safe haven at school. And, does the community help? Well, lots of times I I think during the 80s, the community felt, we don't need to do anything for you. You're on your own.
Well, here's the $1 million question. So, what, if any, steps would you, if you were in charge and you could change things, what do you think might really help at this point?
What
Do you have
at this
any-
point? At this point, what would help is the same thing that has helped through the ages. That's good and caring parents. I think all of everything comes from your family. Your family. And it used to be, and I'm saying when I was growing up, it used to be that any adult could say to a child, I don't want you to do that. That's not a good idea. Or I'm going to tell your mother when she comes. Or they could punish you. They could punish you. That person who was an adult could punish you. These days, in reaction to bad things that have happened, you can't do that. You can't say to a child, you need to stop that. I've had friends of mine that tell me, my son threatened to call social services on his father because the father got ready to whip him because he did something. And that was unheard of when I was growing up, when I was a child. And it was unheard of when I raised my children. I whipped my son in the store when he was putting things in the basket, and I said, no, you can't do that. I whipped him right in the store, right in front of a store full of people. No one said anything. I didn't hit him in his face. I whipped him on his bottom. He cried, and I put him in the seat, and we went on. But you cannot, I couldn't do that today. I couldn't do that today because someone would call the police, and I would be arrested and have to justify what was I doing and why was I doing. As a result of that, nowadays you're raising people who are afraid of each other. The parents are afraid of the children, and children are afraid of the parents. And you're raising these children who have no controls, and they just run wild. You know, do whatever they think they can do. They would love for somebody to say, you can't do that. You need to stop. But the parents either are indifferent or afraid and don't offer any control.
Are there changes that could be made in the schools?
My personal feeling is about how changes can be made is because the school, everyone goes to school. Everyone goes to school. Either they school at home or they're school in a public situation. Everybody has to go. And you have to learn things because you are not living in a vacuum. You're not living in a world by yourself. You have to interact with other people. I personally feel that kids in kindergarten, if they learn two things, they'll be off to a flying start. If they learn how to get along with other people, and they learn how to read. They don't learn anything else beyond that. I think they'll be great. And when they're 5 years old, even when they're 4, if they learn those two things. The other thing is, parents need to participate in children's education. They need to come to school. They need to meet the teacher. They need to make themselves known. And they need to participate in their children's education. The other part is, I think, and you see some of it now, the community. The community needs to be involved with the schools. I don't care how old you are, whether you have children or not. Because it all of it is part of you. You're part of it. And you can't get away from it. It's like throwing a stone in the pond. Those ripples will reach you. So you need to participate. You need to have something to say about it. You need to try to help because generations coming behind you, and you need to be involved. And the community needs to be involved. Everybody, and it takes, of course, people who are elected to office. They need to be involved.
Do you think a lot of people share your ideas and
I
feelings about
I have no idea. I talked about it for a long time, but I have no idea. Talked
So
about
maybe
it.
that's one of the things that needs to happen is more dialogue about it. Although, I mean,
I have been on I have been on so many committees and panels, and we need to convene for this, convene for that, and you come up with a program, you come up with a plan, you come up with a lot of things, the implementation of which I have not seen. Because there should be, if you're going to do a program, there should be some plan to go back and see, well, how did this work? Why didn't it work? Was there something wrong with our goals? Was there something wrong in the way we implemented it? Is there something wrong with the way we are assessing it? What happened? Is this still viable? Do we still need it? And we did a panel and a committee on school budget and looked at, what they were spending money for, how they were spending it, who was involved, how much it was. And the question I kept coming to was, that program was in force 5 years ago. It worked. Did it work? Where's proof that it worked? Do you still need it? And a lot of times some of these programs get in force and they're still there 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. Show me how this worked. Did you assess it? Did you assess the need for it still? Do you still need it? These all kids learn how to read. Do you still need that? Well, that's very difficult to find out.
So why aren't people getting more involved? As you say,
Because they feel helpless.
Okay.
What I call helpless and hopeless. They feel helpless. What can I do? I can go to my job, do my little bit of work, and get my little bit of money, and come back and tend to what I need to tend to. That's why people don't want to get involved. It's too much trouble.
So what's the difference? Why do people feel helpless and hopeless now?
Because,
they didn't feel that way in 1960.
well, one of the things they feel like now, they feel the government has become a behemoth. Everything is everything you have to have a law, and you can't just do it. There has to be a law and a rule and a law and a rule and 5 rules for the law. So as soon as you institute this, somebody will say, "Oh, there's a little hole over here. Something's leaking out. We didn't shore that up." So then they have to build yet 5 more things around that. And then it gets so legalized and so institutionalized, so I don't know what else, just becomes, and people just say, it's too much.
What do you think about, do you have any thoughts that you want about the welfare reform?
I've always felt, when I served on Social Services Board, I felt we needed welfare reform. The problem with that is it's like freedom in capitalism, or having a democracy in capitalism. You have to have a job. You have to have a decent wage for people to go to. I had a conversation with a lady I used to work with once. She said, These people on welfare, I don't know, I'd rather work, you know. I said, don't be ridiculous. You're going to pay them $1.50 to work for you. They can get $1.52 from social services. No one's going to work for you. I just feel, I said, don't even say that. It's not even human nature for people to do that. It makes sense to me if I need to feed my family and I need to take care of myself. $1.52 is better than $1.50. So, there's no discussion on that. And she said, well, I don't know what. Pay people a decent wage. In this country, in order to have something called a country, you've got to have some things. People need to be healthy, they have to be educated, and they have to be employed. If they aren't that, then you don't have a household, you don't have a community, you don't have a country. So people need to be employed. I think having people off welfare is great, but you need to pay them a wage where they can at least have shelter, pay for decent food, and have clothes on their back and some kind of health service. That's it.
Everlyn Holland speaking with Merideth Taylor. And I wanted to know a little bit more about the White Citizens Council, or they may have called themselves something else, you said. And that was around the time of Martin Luther King's assassination?
Right. I think those, they were probably called something else. Their members were other organizations, but they certainly were here in St. Mary's County. And at one time, I know the sheriff had deputies, which he deputized in case of a problem, of a riot, which never occurred. And my husband wrote a letter to the paper because these people's names were never made public as being deputies, which was a little, more than a little strange.
Like a posse.
Yeah, right. They were not named publicly, so.
And then, were there any reactions to that letter? Do you remember?
There were reactions.
Go on?
There were reactions among the black community. People were upset about it, but there just wasn't anything that came of it. There wasn't anything that came of it.
And were there any other? Did you ever have any other ideas about what, how that group, what their agenda was, and in what ways they might have gone about it, and even I mean, just not that you have evidence of, but
No, I could only speculate. I have no evidence about what the group would be or do, but I'm sure it was part of. We need to maintain the status quo. We need to keep everything the way it was here in St. Mary's County. And in the schools, there really wasn't, in the school system, they had, at Great Mills, they had, they had a riot in the school, which was a big thing down there. And they had to call the sheriff, they had to call out everybody. And the students were arrested. Black students were arrested.
And did it go anywhere else? It died down after that?
It didn't die down after that. I mean, we had meetings, and we had, as I say, a panel and a group of families and citizens, black, white, teachers, the principals of the school, all of those things. Yeah, we had usually after the fact an investigative committee we had that.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have a couple other questions, more about your own personal attitudes. And one of them is about white women. So, do you, have you had friendships with white women? I'm interested in just interactions between black women and white women. This long history of very tensions, and but also there were a lot of friendships, and in certain eras, they have really combined. I mean, a long time ago, the abolitionists and the early feminists worked together, and then there's a very mixed kind of interaction in the feminist movement in the 70s. But just on what's been your own experience that you're be willing to talk about with white women, you know, your attitudes and your experiences.
My experience, I've had white friends, as people want to say. In fact, I have a very good white friend. She was so good that she donated blood for me when I had to have a very serious operation. She was one of the two people that I needed. And we made the joke, you know, friends, we are sisters under the skin. We have the same blood type. That's right. So I was fortunate to do that. And I think of her as a friend. However, I try to see people as people, and I see her as a person. But generally, my feeling toward white women is mixed. When I look back over history and you think about the abolitionists and the feminists and the time, I see that white women's, their agenda has always been advanced on the back of blacks. In the civil rights movement, it somehow became civil rights and women's rights, and women generally meaning white women. And I think when the doors open to economic opportunity and the doors open for white women. I don't think that, certainly not black women, went through.
Can you say any more about, you know, you say opportunities for women, mostly white women.
Right.
How that, your perception of that came about, or how that...
My perception of that came about through the feminist groups and the coalitions that were formed and the movement forward of the laws and things that the equal employment laws, all of those laws. Somehow women were attached to that. And I don't understand, I never understood why women were referred to as a minority. And when women are the majority in this country. White and black women are the majority in this country. So how they came to be included on minority issues,
You didn't think that there was
I failed.
discrimination against women as a group?
Well, as a group, as far as I'm concerned, white women were sleeping with people who had the power. So, what was the problem?
Well, of course, women's wages, for instance, were never anywhere near equal to men.
And why? I'm saying again, you were sleeping with the man who controlled the purse strings. So you should have made some kind of agreement or arrangement to change that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's what women were trying to do.
Well,
But,
right. Then, as far as I'm concerned, you should have been honest about it to say, well, I'm not going to sleep with you unless we get better. Who had the power to do that? White men. Not black men, not black women, and obviously not white women.
Do you think theoretically there you could see an advantage in black women and white women joining together to accomplish?
Sure, I could.
Goal?
Yes, I could see an advantage to that. It probably started that way, but it doesn't work that way. At some point in time, it starts as a collective and winds up, well, I think it's time now to decide who's going to be in charge here and who's going to reap the advantage of the marches and the trench work and all of that. And usually what happens is white women advanced in management and in all these other areas. And you have a few black women who advanced also. But I think it certainly was not in the best interests of black women. Somehow you still came out earning less than everyone else.
And in fact, I think, but according to the statistics that I've seen, black women have advanced further than black men in terms of middle management.
Yes, because what happens then is, the managers cater to, well, you can get 2 for 1. You can get a black person and you can get a woman. And I'm sure you've heard that. So who's going to go up the scale? The black woman. 10 to 1, she's been to college, and people are more likely. I think back in the 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s and 60s, they would educate their females. Black people would. They would educate, send the girls to school. And so those people were poised and they were ready to take advantage of that. They could be advanced to some middle management areas. But when it became blacks and women, they said, well, how can I get a black and a woman? I can hire a black woman and meet both of those requirements. So that's what they did.
One, at least a black woman, feminist, one of the things she felt during the civil rights struggle, the whole thing basically, was that black men often discriminated against black women.
Sure.
Within the
Sure they did. They certainly did. They certainly did. As far as I'm concerned, it all goes back to people making divisions and saying, there has to be somebody that I am better than. So, black men saying, this is okay, I need to be in charge of this. I'm a man. Albeit a black one, I'm a man.
And actually, if you look outside, just the U.S., women, there is
Right.
a universality in terms of women being
Right. Yes.
not being equal.
That's right.
And
That's
doing most
right.
of the work. It's
That's right.
all over the world.
That's right. That's right. That's right. In Africa and in all those other countries, women are seen as somehow less You know, girls, well, I didn't want any girls. Give me males. Um, However, you cannot have males unless you have females. So,
somehow that has never worked into quite the bargaining chip that you think it might be.
right,
But I know that the relationship between white women and black women in this country has been particularly difficult, and there's been a lot of bitterness, I think. In spite of the fact that one, as you say, you know, when you look at it theoretically, you think, well, there could be a potential for
right,
such strength
right.
if they're united.
And then you get into the thing of white women marrying black men, you know. This, in younger generations, I mean, it is very, very divisive, because you'll find black women saying, here's these black men, the minute they get whatever, they marry a white woman.
Yeah, there seems to be a different attitude towards white men marrying black women than black men marrying white women. I'm sorry. I'm tired. Than black women marrying white men. Is that true, or is that just that's my?
No, that's true. Black women, for the most part, they might marry a white man, but a lot of times they look for black men. They just can't. Where are you?
There are fewer, actually.
Sure.
So there's not as much of a stigma attached to that in the black community, you think, or as
I think there's ostracism and stigmatism on both sides.
But I think you're right. I mean that has been definitely one of the sources
Of much friction and contention. That's true.
Well, the other question I had it totally has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It has to do with music, and I wanted to know what kinds of music that were in your home that you grew up with when you were a child. What kind of music you listened to, and it just part of your, has it been an important part of your
Yes.
environment to you? What do you value? What
Sure.
kinds of music?
We used to have a Victrola. Those kind you wind up, you crank, and my mother used to have a lot of records by Fats Waller, and she had records by the Mills Brothers, the Ink Spots. She played all of those records. She liked to play. It's the kind of music I grew up with back in the 40s and 50s. Listened to a lot of music, a lot of different kind of music, any kind. I personally just like music. Doesn't matter what kind it is.
But you listened mostly when you were younger to more popular things that were popular.
Things that were popular at the time.
And particularly African-American artists.
Right.
Did you ever learn any really old traditional music, any of the spirituals, or did you
Oh, yes.
do gospel?
Yes. Yes, we listened to. My mother was from North Carolina, and we used to listen to, and she sang, and we used to listen to, and she used to talk about the gospel singing in the churches down there, and we did, but we were Catholic, and Catholics here they were not singing gospel music, but we did listen to and would sing gospel music.
Do you remember any of the songs? Do you remember any of the titles or any of the songs she used to sing?
she used to sing a song called "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot."
Oh, yeah.
She used to sing that a lot.
That's a very old.
Yes, she used to sing that.
Mm.
And trying to think of some of the others she would sing, but she sang that one a lot. As we got older, we listened to more popular music, and that's about. She liked Nat King Cole. Just listen to that, and more modern artists. Listen to that. Duke Ellington. She used to go to and take us to the Howard Theater there in Washington, and we could see and hear the people there. And we used to go to the tent revivals in Washington,
Oh.
and so you'd hear a lot of music there.
And that, so you did that when you were growing up as a child, you went to the tent revivals. And are those are still going on?
No,
today?
no, no, they don't do that anymore.
I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, I know they used to, and I
Right,
thought,
but not in Washington. They have them.
more rural areas.
That's right. We go south sometime to Georgia. They will have the tent revival, but not in the Washington area. Not anymore. People have. I mean, they have a church. They might have a revival in the church.
So that's interesting, as Catholics, though, that you went to tent revivals.
Sure, I
Lot
went
of
because no, not a lot of Catholics, but I did because there was just a better feeling there in the church than when you went to the tent revival to hear what I was always interested in all religions, what people were saying, doing, what they believed. So we went to a lot of different places.
Did you say that your church is it mostly white or mostly black or just very mixed? I can't remember.
It's mostly white. The church currently, the St. Aloysius, yes. You don't have that many. You have black people go in there, but not really that many. And you don't have that many young black people go in there.
Okay. Well, this is great. I think that's everything I could really think of. I'm sure I'll come up with other things. My organized notes. Yeah, you know, another thing that really caught me when I listened to your tape again was you said, I think everything is intentional. Because we were talking about, you know, well, a lot of times, and I thought that's really important because a lot of times the way that racism or discrimination gets explained away is as if it were somehow accidental. And I thought, doesn't that it really expresses a sense of responsibility about things that to me is part of what's really missing now, is that for some reason, and I really don't know why, people don't seem to feel the same kind of responsibility for their actions that perhaps they once did. At least that's my perception. And a lot of times we say, oh, well, that's just the way things are, or, you know, and just, but to say it's not accidental, it's not, you know, that it's I don't know if it was the right word, but it's deliberate, was the word used. Everything is deliberate, in fact, which is even more so.
Right.
That it doesn't just happen.
Right. But people don't want to, well, you don't want to shine a light on yourself because you will have to look at yourself. And you don't want to look at yourself in a bad light. You want to think of yourself as being a good, upright, God-fearing, if you will, religious, righteous, all of those adjectives that you want to describe yourself as being okay. So you explain away. It was that's what was going on. I was only following.
Those
Yeah.
were the times.
Those were the times. It's like the Germans, you know, when they killed all those people. I mean, to have it on television, it didn't happen. So all those people were killed in a dream. And the Germans who were there during the Second World War, some of those people are still living. Where were you? What were you doing? And well, but they can't stand to look at themselves. I mean, if you open that door, I mean, it's like you're committing psychological, spiritual suicide.
And actually, a lot of that, it's interesting because so much is going on right now with that some of those doors are starting to be open.
That's
and
right.
This is how long it takes to even
Right.
start
To look at it.
to look at it.
Right. But they don't want to do that because it will say, I will have to admit to myself,
Also part of it.
I'm a bad person. I was here, I stood here, I watched, and I knew. And I am not as good as I think I am. Or I'd like to be. So I can't open myself up to that. So it didn't happen. Everyone was doing it. It was the times. All those excuses that we give for explaining stuff away. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're certainly welcome.